All right. Hey, Sharon,
Hey,
welcome.
Stacy.
It's so good to see you.
Yeah, it's great. I'm glad to be back.
Here we go, right? We are kicking off a new season of A Dash of Salt. And today is kind of our first episode of the new season. And so I'm super excited. Are you?
Yeah, I'm very excited. I think it's going to be, I'm all about continuous improvement. So watch out, listeners.
Right. I mean, anybody that stuck with us through kind of our first round, thank you for coming back because
Absolutely.
we are we are going to try to get better. And honestly, we're just having fun too. Yeah, so we are a dash of salt and two salty women here to sprinkle a little flavor into your everyday journey. And so that is work, growth. We're going to talk a little bit about everything. And I'm Stacy McCracken, your co-host. I am a small town Midwestern girl turned Austinite.
And I am Sharon Mawet, your salty companion. I'm a native Texan with a knack for baking up big dreams.
And together we are going to infuse a little saltiness into your world. And just to be clear, we are not angry. We are not upset. This isn't about being salty like that. This is all about adding flavor and spice and having a little bit of fun.
That's right. So we encourage you to sit back, relax, and get ready for a flavorful ride. If this is your first time for tuning in, thank you for joining us. And if you're back for more, you know, A plus for you. So we can't wait to share more content with you in season two. And today we're going to talk about staying on track and for our goals that we've set for ourselves.
I am so excited that we're talking about this, Sharon, because it is like one quarter is almost over in this year. And
That's right.
I feel like this topic is just for me. And so maybe our listeners feel this way too. But I just cannot believe how quickly the year is moving by. And so
Absolutely.
in you
Life
know, I
happens.
I feel like I am behind. I feel like I'm a little discombobulated and that I haven't made as much progress as I want to, and that I just need a little bit of a reset. And so I'd like to challenge our listeners as we get started to share in the comments and as they're listening and as they have ideas to tell us how they reset, right? And how they get back on track. And so, my reset plans look different depending on what my issue is. So if I'm low on energy, I may crank up the music. If I'm feeling unfocused, I may just make a list, right? Or clean up my desk. If my desk is feeling particularly messy and chaotic, then I may make a list. But, I'm curious, do you have how are you doing? And do you have reset strategies? What does that look like for you?
Well, that is a great question. We're going to dive into that reset strategy, but I did that exact thing this weekend. I went to my closet in my office and did a clean out because I was just like, okay, I can focus on something. It was short term. I did a few shelves, made me feel better. Didn't really tackle all my problems or help me get back on track, but small accomplishments go a long way. Um, yeah. So,
Don't you think it's just about that feeling of like I feel so good when I can straighten something up or clean something out, or like it just seems to help me focus. And I do know it's good for your brain, right? To stop wrestling over here and just kind of give your brain a rest. And like stuff happens. So, you know that my beginning of January and February was just chaotic. I was supposed to be taking care of my mom for about 3 weeks. She had surgery and it turned into almost six. And so talk about having to shuffle my plans. And then now I'm back and I'm like, I don't even know what the heck I was doing. And what are my goals now that I can really focus, right? I had big aspirations that I was going to be able to keep working and stick to my plan and make all this stuff happen. And when your routine is is upset, right? Like, I have a morning routine, I have an afternoon routine, and that was all out the window. And I found that I just really struggled to focus.
Yes,
So I
absolutely.
hope you're going to help me figure all this out today.
I don't know that I can solve all of our programs today, but our problems today, but we're going to certainly have a fun discussion about it anyway. But, back to your original question, just to get us all in the same mindset, but a reset strategy is about recognizing I'm off track and I need to have a plan to refocus. So, yes, definitely I'm off track this year as well. I think my reasons are a little bit different than yours. But, I think we both started off this year thinking about all the things we wanted to accomplish, like most people do. It's a new year, new us. And what can we do that's different than last year, going back to continuous improvement, right? For example, one of my big projects this year was I've thought about it for a long time, but my father is no longer with us. But when he was alive, he wrote all these different chapters about all the cars that he owned, his service in the Navy, his, sales job that he had. But he wrote all these different chapters in a Word document. And I thought it would be a fun gift to give to my brothers to put these all into a nice little book that's bound and pretty and put pictures in there. But, I keep getting started on it and then something distracts me and I still have yet to finish it, even though it's really not that big of a project. Um, but like you, I look up and I see the calendar that it's March already, and I feel like I really haven't accomplished a thing. So,
So,
yeah, go ahead.
what does that look like for you? When you came to that conclusion, like how did you feel? Did you feel like, oh crap, like it's March and what am I doing? Or did you feel like it's fine, I've got this, I can just refocus and get it figured out? Like what came to your mind when you kind of had that realization?
Yeah. Well, I'm happy to say in my maturity over the years, I have come to a new place to recognize instead of berating myself and saying, oh my gosh, I failed again. It's so terrible. I have learned to stop that downward spiral. And I've learned to say, before I go down that path, I say, you know what? I just need to pause, you know, and really think to myself, is that really a true statement? Is it really all that bad? No. Do my siblings know that I have this idea in mind? Is there a deadline in place? No. It's all self-imposed. So I need to determine, you know, what have I done? Well, I cleaned out my office this week and my closet this weekend instead. So I have to look and pause, reset, think about the things I have accomplished that maybe weren't on my list, but you know, determine what is not working. So, yeah, we know, like you just said, life can really take a turn, unexpected illnesses or work plans and deadlines really interrupt our lives. So,
Or like this morning, my camera quit working on my computer and then the power went out at the house for 2 hours.
exactly. Yep.
I thought, and I mean, I had my time block set. I was getting down to business, and it was just like God's sense of humor at work because it was like, nope,
Other plans.
other
Exactly.
plans.
So I've realized over the years, so today I think we're going to talk about three patterns that I find really can affect me. The first one is seasonal changes, routine, and then just community. And a lot of that is like could be our family and friends that really impact us. Do you think those are some of the major impacts that affect you as well?
I like that. I like that, especially because we're coming up on this whole spring forward nonsense. And
Haven't even gotten there yet. Thanks.
right. And I mean, I barely, come on. The wind's been
Exactly.
blowing today. I'm just getting over my cedar allergies. And now we're going to spring forward. And it's not like I've been getting too much sleep anyway. And we're just going to take an hour away. So, yes, I think the seasonal
Exactly.
thing is absolutely something. And we're lucky. We live in Texas where we get more sunshine than folks who live elsewhere, right?
Yeah.
And I think community is another really good one as well. And then routine, we talked about it earlier, right? When your routine gets just, disheveled, right? Or something new comes in, it can really kind of mess things up. So I love that. I think those are three great ones to talk about.
Well, let's kick off with that seasonal change before we get to the spring forward. But the winter slump, I'm sure you've heard of that, really, really got me this year. And it lasted longer than it has in the past. Now here in Texas, we had snow and a big cold, um, you know, drop below freezing temperatures, which, everything stops in Texas. So, the problem with that winter slump, it's hard to get outside. And, we are, it's dark in the morning to go for that morning walk. It's dark after when you get off work to hard to go, gives you a very small window to go for a walk after work. I just realized that the beach and vitamin D were definitely calling my name in the last few weeks. So, you
I
know,
spent most of the winter in Florida. And so
there
I
you
could
go.
say that I actually, missed that part of our winter here. But, it still was getting dark earlier and, just not that same amount of sunshine, which I absolutely missed.
Yeah. But, so why does let's look at the facts. Let's look at the why, right? Why does our motivation drop in various seasons? So in the winter, the obvious reasons are there's less daylight, right? So that impacts our mood and our energy levels. It's colder. So we can't get outside. And, going to visit your friends, you kind of maybe say, well, I'm just going to stay bundled up on my couch as well. In the spring, like you said, seasonal allergies start to hit us. The time change affects our sleep routines, right? We also have, that motivational struggles because, you're starting to get into the end of the first half of the year and you're like, hey, I'm not getting very far on my goal. So your motivation is just like, back to square one again. In the summer, we again have disrupted routines due to vacations, or kids might be out of school, home from the holidays, or everybody at work is gone because they're on vacation. And then, of course, in Texas, it's hot. It's hot. So, and then fall, we come back to the same thing. Even though we may be empty nesters, that back to school transition affects all of us because people we talk to, or grandkids, or it's just a mental shift for everybody to say, hey, it's back to school. What am I going to do
It's
again?
traffic. it's
Yes,
it's
traffic.
traffic. I think that's one of the things I notice here is, the traffic pattern shift, which means just the ability to, run to a lunch meeting or do something else can really change as you move from summer to fall as
Yeah.
well.
So how do we counteract these reasons for a seasonal slump? And so a lot of those things are the routine that you mentioned. How can we think about which season affects us the most? For me, it's winter and the lack of daylight, that I know really impacts my mood. So how can I create a routine to counterbalance that impact on my life? And so maybe scheduling into my work calendar a short walk at lunch, to get outside and see the sunlight, right? To make sure, or, maybe end my workday a little bit earlier and start it earlier so I can get outside after work before it gets dark again. So really think through how each season may affect you, ideally before the season starts to hit. So you have a plan to counteract those slumps before the season and have a good routine or plan of action before that season starts. What would you say is your particular seasonal slump, Stacy?
I definitely need sunlight like you. And so I know that when I start my day with a walk and the sun is shining, I just have more energy for the rest of the day.
Mm-hmm.
Now, one of the things that we do, and I've talked about dog park and going over to play at puppy playtime. And so we adjust our schedule as the light shifts
Mm,
and the time shifts because we still want to all get together. And I think we're going to talk about community later because you mentioned it, right? And so we naturally adjust as the light shifts. And so this time of year, we're going to play before dinner time because it gets dark so early. And then in the summertime, right, we're pushing it much later in the day after dinner time because it's hot and, it doesn't get dark till later. And
right.
so definitely adjusting my routine for that sunlight, like you described, is something. And I do take walks at lunchtime.
Mm,
Um, and so truly, 5-10 minutes around the block. So nothing extravagant or
yeah.
nothing, long, but I find that it also helps give me some new energy to kind of tackle the afternoon and sort of head off that afternoon slump.
Yeah.
Um,
And I find that, like I said, today the wind was super crazy or it's raining. And so I can't get outside. I have also found, I read an article about 10 minutes walking on an incline. I'm fortunate to have a treadmill at home. And so I will use my lunch break or even just a quick 3 p.m. break at work and go walk on an incline and read my email. I put the incline on 10 to 15 and walk for 10 minutes and, gets my heart beating, gets that energy back up. And then I'm like, can refocus a little bit better. So, you know, exercise is a good way to, in addition to your routines, to help that seasonal slump. So, talking about routines, I think that's my other biggest adjustment, especially at empty nest life, is the kids are not driving my schedule any longer. I'm driving my schedule, and having that flexibility is really too much choice for me. I prefer working sometimes to a deadline. I have to leave the house by 7:30 to do carpool, got me up and motivated to work out in the morning. But now I don't have to leave that early. And so I find it hard to get up to exercise. I find that lack of deadline and routine will affect my motivation to get up and do the things that I thought I would. How about you?
That's funny. So I am not a morning workout person. My husband is totally a morning workout person. And so he gets up at 5 because he wants to get his workout in before his day starts. And I don't even wake up anymore. And so, but I do get up and have a very structured morning routine, even though I'm an empty nester now. But well, I'm not technically an empty nester because I have Jackson, my dog, right? And
Okay. Yeah.
so, and so, I learned that Huskies, because they're working dogs, are very structured in their
Mm,
routines. And so they sort of memorize the routine because that's their job.
mm,
And so he's very good at his job because I mean, I'm up for 3 minutes and he's like, we need to go feed the squirrels now. And so
mm.
that's kind of my first dose of sunlight. And then as soon as we're back inside, it's time to go for a walk. And so, I'm like, let me just get a drink of caffeine here. And then we're off for a walk. And then when we get back, he's like, and now you can feed me breakfast. And so, in the first 15 minutes I'm up, all of those things have happened. And so it's very structured.
Yep.
Um, and it would probably be good if I worked in some more workout, but I find that I'm trying to do a lot more walking to get
Yes.
that
Mhm.
exercise piece. But when I do miss my morning routine, it throws off the rest of my day.
Yeah. Well, that I found, and there's research out there that shows that the more flexibility we have, it can lead to that aimlessness or lack of urgency, which is my biggest, derailer to my motivation, is because I don't have an urgent deadline or, soccer schedule I have to adhere to. So I do feel a little aimless. So some tricks that I've kind of learned myself is I really have to sit back when I find that happening, is to really figure out what are my priorities? Do I have a goal that I really want to accomplish this week? I try to keep it compartmentalized to not a big, gigantic goal, but okay, do I want to work out more this week? Do I want to spend more time with my husband this week? What is off in my schedule? And then treat those personal goals like an appointment. For example, my husband and I kept nagging each other like we need to spend more time together. And we're like, hey, we can go for a walk after work. And we kept saying we would do it. But it wasn't until we said, hey, we're going to go for a walk at 5:30 p.m. that we actually started doing it and really got it onto a habit, if you will. But it wasn't until we set a time that we made it happen. Same thing I learned with my workout. When I decided I pre-planned my routine, or I pick out my Peloton bicycle ride the night before and I get my clothes out. And then I'm like, okay, I've committed, I've taken action, I have a plan for tomorrow. And then I'm more likely to get up and go do that plan because I wrote it down or I committed to an idea.
I love that. And, I find that the other thing that I do that is part of that same kind of routine is when I'm in the habit of every day at the end of the day saying, okay, what were my three wins for today?
Hmm.
And what are the three things I want to focus on tomorrow? And then at the end of the day, revisiting that and going, okay, what were my three wins for today? How did I do on those three things I wanted to focus on? And what do I want to adjust for tomorrow? And I'm super intentional about thinking about it, writing it down. And it's that way of taking a really big goal, right? And breaking it down into
Exactly.
smaller parts. Um, that I find that I stick with things.
Yep.
That's how I got my dissertation written, was I knew exactly how many words a day I needed to be writing, and
Mm.
I knew exactly how many days I had until it had to be done, and then I just broke it down, and that was, you know, how I did it.
Yeah, that's
But when
great.
I'm out of that habit, right,
Yep.
then
It goes
it
out the window.
just, you're like,
Mhm.
you sit down and you're like, what am I going to do today?
Exactly.
What am I
Yep.
trying to accomplish? So yeah.
Exactly. So, finding new ways to rewrite your routines is important. And then lastly, our last idea is that power of community and accountability, right? So when we set a goal for ourselves and we don't tell anybody, we don't tell our spouse, we don't tell our friends, it's really hard to stay motivated sometimes. I do find that myself. My husband and I talk about this all the time. He loves to ride his bike and competes against himself. And I'm like, I have no desire to compete against myself and beat a previous record. That's not my motivation. But talking to somebody and saying, hey, I'm going to call 5 people this week to find a new pickleball group. And I tell you that, well, it motivates me because I'm like, okay, well, I got to make sure I call those 5 people before I talk to Stacy again, because she may ask me if I've done anything. And so it helps you not to make excuses for yourself. And having a friend to check in with or publicly sharing your goals is another way of staying on track.
I love that. It is that accountability, right? Is just creating that tension, if you will, of I don't want Sharon to go, well, Stacy, you said you were going to do that. And me go, yeah, well, I didn't do it. I have a friend in Arizona, and she and I do that for each other when we have the opportunity to connect. And sometimes we just text each other, and I'll go, okay, you know, I'm checking in. What is your big thing you're trying to get done this week? How can I help you? And she'll tell me what it is. And then she'll say, you know, check back in with me at the end of the week. And so then I'll just text her and say, hey, I'm checking in. How'd that go? Did you make any progress? And she'll do the same thing for me. And so you don't even have to, you can even virtually, right?
Yep.
share those goals and be able to hold each other accountable, but in a way that it's like, I care about you. If this is important to you, then I want to support you. Right.
Right. Well, I think part of that, and for me, having accountability or having a partner or sharing my goals with somebody is the importance and the reward of celebrating small wins together. Right. I love it when somebody says, "Good job, Sharon," because, in my role, I don't hear that often. And certainly my husband is not telling me great job, Sharon, all that often for cooking dinner. So just celebrating small wins together, it just brings a smile to my face and makes me want to continue down that path of staying motivated.
For sure. And, like we do that a lot, like sending each other gold stars and whatnot,
Yeah,
because I mean, who else is going to be our cheerleaders, right?
exactly.
And
Exactly.
so, and it may seem silly, but it actually makes a difference.
Yeah.
And I think that's why that celebrating those wins at the end of every day, like even if it wasn't what was on your to-do list or your priority list, but before we started today, you were sharing with me, right, that you had baked bread over the weekend,
Yeah.
right? And while that may not have been getting the book done or whatever, like that's a total win because you practiced a skill, you did something that you loved, and you set time aside for it.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. And I, did it with a friend, and it was a lot of fun to teach somebody a new trick or a new technique. So that was a lot of fun. So you do have to, yeah, because we need to, as I said at the beginning, is to take a pause to reset, right? We need to understand that motivation and staying on track may come and go. But if we have the right mindset, or we put in the right structure, or build a strong community around us, that can help us keep moving forward. Even if it may be two steps forward, one step back, we're still making forward progression. So, yeah, so we hope, I'll go back to Stacy's first question. Tell us what's one small thing that you're going to do this week to stay on track, or what's one area that you help to motivate you and stay on track. We'd love to know how you stay focused as well.
Absolutely. Sharon, thank you so much for sharing those ideas and just your strategies. I there's a book that I've read, and it's kind of an old book now, but as we were talking, it came to mind, called The 12-Week Year.
Mhm.
And it is, the whole idea is, instead of having goals for a year, right, breaking your year down into 12-week segments
Mm.
and then thinking, okay, I do have this place I'm trying to get to, but what do I need to do in these 12 weeks, right, to help me move forward, right? And so it's breaking those big goals down into smaller, more manageable pieces, right? So
Right.
you can stay focused and motivated. Um, because if you're not celebrating till the end of the year, it's not going to be enough, right? I think you have to celebrate every day, right? what
Right.
what you accomplished for the day. And so that actually takes me to Salt's Kitchen, which
All right.
which I have cooked up a recipe for motivation today.
Awesome. I love
So
it.
right, staying on track cannot just be one big giant effort, right? It is about having the right ingredients mixed together, right? And so for us, I want our ingredients to be small wins. Let's just take a cup of small wins, right? And then a couple of tablespoons of accountability, like we talked about, right? That accountability is going to help. And then I think it's important to add a little bit of fun in there, because otherwise, why bother? Right.
Exactly. It's all
And
about
so
the
that is my recipe. And I would recommend, right, the most celebrating small wins, a little bit of accountability, and a little bit of fun.
I think it's a perfect recipe for motivation.
And the idea is that these things should not stress you. And I think I would like to encourage, as you dive into the recipe, right? And you're like, okay, how am I going to create some structure and routine? How am I going to celebrate these small wins? Is try out a method. Decide what you want your morning routine to be or your afternoon routine or how you're going to keep yourself accountable. Find a friend and try it out. See how it works. Give everything a chance. Like give it a week and then review and go, that didn't work for me. And then try something else. I'm sure you've cooked up recipes before where you're like, ooh, next time I make this, I think I need to add a little bit more of this and a little bit less of this. And this
Absolutely.
this is no different. And so that is my encouragement and my recipe from Salt's Kitchen today to help us stay on track.
That's awesome. Well, I appreciate and we thank you for joining us on A Dash of Salt. I am Sharon Mawet, and along with my good friend Stacy McCracken, your host from Two Salty Women. Remember to keep seasoning your journey with purpose, passion, and a pinch of playfulness. So until next time, savor each moment because life is always better with a dash of salt.
Absolutely. And don't forget to subscribe and visit us on twosaltywomen.com for more flavorful content. And we will put a reference to the book that I mentioned. And don't forget to add your comments. We'd love to hear from you. Take care. Have a great week.
Talk to you next time.